Tonight, than the President's fifth State of the Nation address.
Hindi ako pangulo ng aking pamilya. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking kaibigan. Ako ay pangulo ng Pilipinas.
PBBM says a barrage of cases is set to be filed against his cousin, former Speaker Martin Romualdez. That's over the flood control scam, the highlight of his Sona last year. Most applauded parts of the president's speech had to do with taxes and power charges, gut issues Filipinos have repeatedly complained about. Then, there's also mention of the controversial Pac Silica initiative, a supposedly power and water-hungry AI hub in Tarlac, seen by critics as anti-farmer and community.
The Pac Silica Industrial Hub will create an ecosystem that will have AI at its core. It will bring quality jobs to our people, accelerate our industrial competitiveness, and revitalize our economy.
Finally, President Marcos addresses the tug-of-war over the West Philippine Sea, saying Filipinos are not a racist, greedy, or lying race.
Sa mga pang-aalipusta, hindi tayo matitinag. Sa manlulupig, hindi tayo pasisiil.
Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon. 1 hour, 31 minutes. That's how long it took for President Bongbong Marcos to address Filipinos in his fifth report to the nation. This year's Sona framed the last 2 years of his term around legacy execution, economic expansion, social programs, and national defense. There were also a few surprises in the speech, including the bit about his very own cousin, former Speaker Martin Romualdez. Here are some highlights of PBBM's fifth State of the Nation address.
Isang taon na ang nakalipas mula noong huli akong tumayo rito upang ilantad ang katiwalian na nadiskubre namin sa mga flood control project. At dumating na tayo sa punto na ayon sa Ombudsman ay malapit na ang paghain ng patong-patong na kaso laban sa dating Speaker. Masakit man sa akin ito, ngunit kailangan nating gawin ang tama. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking pamilya. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking kaibigan. Ako ay pangulo ng Pilipinas at ang tungkulin ko ay sa inyo, ang aking mga kapwa Pilipino. Mula nung tumama sa ating bansa ang epekto ng giyera sa gitnang silangan, nagdeklara tayo agad ng State of National Energy Emergency. Iisa ang ating misyon, uplift, ang iahon ng ating nahihirapang mga mamamayan. Natiyak nating sapat ang supply ng langis para sa ating pangangailangan. Sa kooperasyon ng ating mga kumpanya ng langis, hindi naging biglaan ang pagtaas ng presyo ng petrolyo. Kumilos agad tayo upang pigilan ang mabilis na pagtaas ng presyo ng bilihin. Patuloy pa rin ang programang Benteng Bigas Meron Na. Ang mahigit 800 nating kadiwa ay nasa buong Pilipinas ay sabay pa rin nakakatulong sa mga namimili at sa mga magsasaka at mangingisda na direktang nakakapagtinda ng kanilang mga produkto. Ang sektor ng transportasyon ang pinakamatinding tinamaan ng epekto ng krisis. Super, operator, pasahero, manggagawa o negosyo man. Lahat ay umaray sa matarik na pagtaas ng presyo ng produktong petrolyo. Ngunit hindi natin kayang hayaan tumigil o maantala ito dahil ito ang nagsisilbing piston ng ating ekonomiya. Hindi natin kaliligtaan ang ating mga manggagawang Pilipino, lalo na ang mga middle class, pati na ang mga maliliit na negosyo. Kaya bilang natatanging proteksyon sa kanila at para mas mapakinabangan nila ang pinaghirapan nilang kita, nananawagan ako sa Kongreso upang maipasa ang batas na magbibigay ng bahagyang ginhawa para sa ating bayaring buwis. We have moved on from the reactive approach.
Now we are not only proactive, but predictive as well. Pushing the envelope further, perhaps it is time for us to revisit nuclear energy production. At kung pagbawas ng presyo ang usapan, sa aking palagay, panahon na para tanggalin na natin ang systems loss na pinapasa sa consumer. We, the people, we demand for the immediate amendment of the EPIRA. And to prohibit charging systems loss against consumers, including the value-added tax thereon. Sa mga magulang at kaanak ng mga nasawit at nasaktan dahil sa nangyaring karahasan sa mga paaralan, tanggapin po ninyo ang aming taimtib na pakikiramay. Sa nalalabing 2 taon ng administrasyon, tatapusin natin ang mga nasimulan at tutuparin ang ating pangako sa sambayanan.
President Bongbong Marcos's fifth State of the Nation speech focused on the issues of corruption, the economy, and security. And to give us details of the President's speech, let's bring in mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Merimon, what were the key points of the speech?
Says the flood control mess was the first topic that President Bongbong Marcos discussed during his Sona. He reported on the cases that have been filed and the personalities that have been jailed. And now that cases may soon be filed against his own cousin, former House Speaker Martin Romualdez, Mr. Marcos said that this was painful but necessary. Here's what PBBM said.
Dumating na tayo sa punto na ayon sa Ombudsman ay malapit na ang paghain ng patong-patong na kaso laban sa dating Speaker. Masakit man sa akin ito, ngunit kailangan nating gawin ang tama. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking pamilya. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking kaibigan. Ako ay pangulo ng Pilipinas.
Says the president also highlighted other individuals charged in connection with the flood control scandal. He also said the government has recovered 25 billion pesos worth of money and assets from those accused of corruption. Meantime, there were quite a number of statements from the president which drew applause from those in attendance at the Batasang Pambansa. Among them were tax relief and exemptions for workers, small businesses, and even those with unpaid taxes. PBBM said he wants to raise the annual income tax exemption from the current 250,000 pesos to 350,000 pesos. Let's listen to that soundbite.
Nananawagan ako sa Kongreso upang maipasa ang batas na magbibigay ng bahagyang ginhawa para sa ating bayaring buwis. Una, palawakin natin ang exemption sa income tax. Dagdagan natin ang mga manggagawang malilibre sa buwis sa kanilang kita. Isasama na natin ang mga kumikita ng hindi lalagpas sa 350,000 pesos kada taon.
President Marcos also discussed the current high cost of electricity, which received a standing ovation. PBBM called for the removal of systems loss charges from electricity bills. This refers to electricity that enters the transmission or distribution network but is not sold or billed as actual customer consumption. President Marcos wants consumers to pay only for the electricity that they actually use. Let's take a listen.
Kung pagbawas ng presyo ang usapan, sa aking palagay, panahon na para tanggalin na natin ang systems loss na pinapasa sa consumer. Pinapasa ito sa consumer at kinakarga sa bill na pinapatungan pa ng value-added tax. Hindi naman kasalanan ng consumer kung bakit nagkaroon ng systems loss. Kaya hindi naman tama na kailangan sila pa ang pagbabayarin dito. We demand for the immediate amendment of the EPIRA.
Now, Mary Mon, another issue that drew wide applause was Mr. Marcos's statements on the West Philippine Sea. What did the president say exactly?
Says President Marcos took an apparent swipe at China's recent propaganda video against Filipinos. He touted his administration's continued assertion of Philippine sovereignty and rejection of foreign disinformation campaigns on the disputed waters. PBBM stated that the Philippines will continue to uphold the 2016 Arbitral Award and that Filipinos will not give in to threats and intimidation. Here's what the president said.
Mga kapwa kong Pilipino, sa ganitong mga banta sa ating seguridad, sa loob at sa labas ng bansa, tayo'y tumindig ng taas noo at magkapit-bisig. Dahil tayo man ay magkakaiba sa maraming bagay, iisa lang tayong lahi. Tayong lahat ay Pilipino, Pilipino sa diwa, Pilipino sa dugo.
Now, Mary Mon, the question is, can the president fulfill all of his promises in the remaining 2 years, or rather, the remaining 2 years of his term?
Well, says PBBM vows to finish what his administration has started and will be fulfilling his promises to the Filipino people. Let's listen to a part of what the president said.
Sa nalalabing 2 taon ng administrasyon, tatapusin natin ang mga nasimulan at tutuparin ang ating pangako sa sambayanan. My beloved countrymen, let us continue the work that we have started. We do this for our future. We can but do this because we love our country and we love our people.
All right, that was mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes there, reporting live from the Batasang Pambansa. Now let's discuss the president's Sona further with political scientist Cleve Arguelles, who joins us tonight. Good evening to you, Cleve. Thank you for coming over to the studio.
Good evening, Ces. Thank you for having me tonight.
Let's go to the good points. Good news muna. What do you think resonated and what is realistic and achievable among the promises made?
Yeah, well, I think a key focus of the president's address this afternoon was what I would call a set of easy political wins. Expanded
Low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruits, right? I mean, he's coming from a very low approval rating. He needs to court public approval, right? So he promised expanded ayuda. There's tax relief. There's lower taxes also for small businesses. And then, of course, there's that proposal to end the charging of the system's loss on the part of the consumers, right? And definitely, this is something that the public would welcome, would embrace. This has broad political appeal. So this is an easy win for President Marcos.
Plus, he spoke mostly in Filipino, which I think he's never really done, maybe smattering of phrases, pero not the whole speech. Ito, halos Filipino.
The way I would describe it nga is doing a Pinoy, because Pinoy is known for his Tagalog Sona, but also doing a bit of like Estrada. Because at the beginning of his speech, he had this line na, you know, hindi lang ako pangulo of my family, I'm not only the president of my family, I'm the president of this country, diba? Which reminded me of walang kamag-anak, walang kaibigan.
Pero you can
Erap,
remember
right?
the oratory of Erap when he said that.
Yeah.
Well, artista kasi siya. Pero nangyari ba yun? Hindi. Diba?
Yes, and hopefully he's not. This is not a
He
premonition.
went against. I hope so, because
I hope
diba,
it's not a premonition. Yeah.
what happened with Erap was the reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's probably really doing it again because he needs to talk to the public. Going into this Sona, my expectation was that, yes, of course, the president will talk about his achievements and he will be talking about his promises. But I think the more important part is that he has to talk to the people. Do we still need to trust you in the remaining 2 years? Are you going to govern for us still? What's the story or legacy of your administration?
Kasi bitin hindi pa iniimbestigahan pa lang, wala pang charges unlike the others, and there's in his audience of congressmen, wala pa. Wala pang na kukulong.
And that's probably one of the rarest, or not rarest, but actually one of the weirdest moments, I'd say, because you have this entire chamber applauding to the president because he has announced that he's willing to pursue charges against his own cousin, right? But it's also the former speaker, and the former speaker was enabled by this house, by this entire House of Representatives, right? But I think this is also another...
So, kaplastikan.
Pwede. But I was actually surprised because I think coming into this Sona as well, because that expose of the president in the last year's Sona actually backfired, right? And damaged his administration. I actually thought that he would be minimizing, downplaying the flood control corruption. But he started with it, no? And promised the head of the former speaker. And this is not, I think this is not for free, diba? He could alienate what remains of the Marcos-aligned voters. He could also alienate Filipinos who have this, yes, we believe in accountability, but more importantly, we also believe that families should not betray each other, diba? So this is also quite surprising for the president still.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, what score would you give the president? What grade would you give him?
This Sona, I think, would get a 7 from me. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. But I think because a 7 is coming from me because I think I expected otherwise. One of the key things that I've noticed here is that the president is not surrendering despite low approval ratings, despite allegations of being lame duck president, embattled. What he is doing in this speech, actually, what he's saying is that he's not surrendering the story of the administrator to his critics. He's willing to write the legacy. He wants to continue writing the story of the legacy of the administration. And that's very surprising for me.
You thought he would look defeated?
Yeah, actually. Because...
Actually, there was more confidence compared to last year.
Actually, yeah.
No?
Kaya I was surprised because also when they were talking about the preparations for this Sona, they were saying it's going to be quiet, dignified, and I thought they were preparing the public for, yun nga, medyo defeated president.
Para low lang ang expectations nila.
Remember, President Gloria Arroyo's Sona, nung she was embattled, diba? Parang short, let's just get it done with.
Let's get it over with.
Shorter exposure, the better. Pero here, the president is saying that I still have a final act. There are still things that are within my powers, and I promise you, I'll try to rescue my presidency.
Let's see. Let's see. I mean, fighting words, you could say. Because one thing, there was this phrase, we are no longer reactive. May pag-amin. Di ba?
Yeah.
We are now proactive and even predictive. So there was an acknowledgement, I guess, because that's the criticism about this presidency. Puro laid back, slow to act, right?
Well, that remains to be seen because with the Sona, for example, we talk about the easy political wins, yung mga ayuda, tax reliefs. Is it really predictive now? But there's no discussion of the fiscal policy of the administration.
That is why hanggang 7 lang.
Diba? You will be expanding tax reliefs, this distribution policies, social protection policies. But what is the plan of the government in terms of revenue raising? Kasi limited ang money. What this means is that may mga unanswered questions. And yun sana yung predictive part. We want to know, is this going to be utang, diba?
Sana sinabi niya paano anong unique revenue raising measures or how will they do to attract investment. Although he mentioned, but it's very vague.
The usual usual, diba? And also siguro
Siyempre, utang yan, ang funding niyan, utang. Although I did talk to Secretary Balisacan here and about the fiscal deficit and whether, they would just the next administration would inherit.
What did he say?
All the debts. He said they don't intend to do that. They intend to do wise spending. So we'll see when they give the budget to the House where they will allocate. One thing I'd like to ask you also, the president had kind of a sheepish smile when he mentioned that the maifip, the ayuda that's dispensed by the politicians will now be on digital, can be availed of digitally on
the
PhilHealth.
eGov.
Yes, on the eGov.
Yes, eGov.
And sabi niya, at hindi maiiwasan na something a line about mga politiko.
Yes.
And then he
yes,
smiled.
Yes.
Kaya ba niya yan? Kasi that's how you control Congress, right? Through these soft pork.
Right. I think at this point, I think the president has realized that he cannot rely on Congress to cement a good legacy for him. I mean, just look at the track record of the Congress last year.
Napasa na nila yung impeachment. Ano pa bang kailangan
And
niya
also
sa kanila?
in terms of the legislative agenda, one lang out of two out of all of the legislative priorities of the president last year. And in fact, in this Sona, there's no legislative ambition anymore. I think that's a recognition of the political reality that the president just deciding, ako na bahala. Let me just do it in my own terms. And that's probably
Kaya
also
ayuda.
that's probably also true for this na rather than, because that's the usual route for MAIF.
Well, the EPIRA law, don't forget.
He asked. Rather than the usual route of MAIF, and dito nga nagkaroon ng problema with the previous speaker, with the previous leadership, di ba? Kasi this is prone to corruption and prone to pork barrel politics as well.
But even the health workers, those who are in the health sector really want that ilagay na yan sa PhilHealth because do you want people lining up, getting all these signatures, hindi ba?
And
so that's a good thing.
It is.
I think he didn't want to make so much of it kasi nga kaharap niya yung mga mawawala.
Not the right venue.
Yeah.
Not
but
the right audience.
I also think that is something brave
Yes.
to say.
And any president that tries to go against Congress is inviting and courting impeachment. I mean, si Erap was the last president to be impeached, to face impeachment, di ba? And part of it was really because hindi niya hinatian yung Congress on the wetting and all. So,
Ganun ba yun?
I mean, I'm a political scientist. That's how we study it. So now, baka magtampo ang Congress because now he's circumventing them, di ba? O e-gov na tayo, directly accessible
Which
to
is
people.
Which is tama naman. Magising naman sila, no? Buti nga hindi pa sila nakakulong dyan.
Prioritize public interest than the political interest.
Exactly. Now, the cons. You'd mentioned already, how will they fund all of this? Because, syempre, with all these tax breaks, marereduce ang government collection. So, what other misses or what didn't you like in the speech?
Another thing is that, of course, President started strongly with that claim na, he will allow that the charges against his own cousin to prosper, and to proceed, right? But are there any other sustainable political reforms that the president wants to lead on so that this scandal, this of big magnitude political reforms won't happen again? There's a pending legislation on limiting the participation of political dynasties in the House. No mention of that, right?
No mention, no?
Are we amending the way we do government procurement and how we select contractors? Shouldn't there be a clear division between people in Congress and contractors? Parang dapat naman hindi sila iisa.
But he did mention that na mas binabantayan na ng DPWH. There have been some safeguards in procurement and in hiring also young graduates, supposedly. So, yes, a big blank was dynasties. Nagbago na ba siya ng isip?
Yeah. And, the president did abandon many of his legislative priorities. So baka nagbago nga ng isip. Yeah.
Kasi alam niyang time is limited. But the House already passed their version, although critics say this is actually cementing dynasties more.
That includes me.
You believe that?
Yes. And probably that's also the reason why the president didn't really mention it at all, because they know that this will be a big issue with the civil society and reform advocates, and probably the president wasn't really keen on inviting that. No?
But that was a priority measure in the LEDAC.
Yes.
But so the Senate still has to report out to plenary its version, which is a better version. Are you pessimistic that this won't be passed within because that would be a major win for a Marcos presidency to have finally put some meet into the provision of the Constitution banning
And
dynasties.
this is probably where reality gets stranger than fiction, because now it's a Marcos who's heading this big anti-corruption effort, and also a Marcos who's heading this. Well, at least in the previous Congress was leading this anti-dynasty reform, right? This is probably it's a bold agenda for any Marcos, but even more so for President Bongbong Marcos himself. We'll see. I think in the Senate, the challenge would be two things. One is that, of course, reform advocates would still lobby that the House version is not actually sufficient, that it actually emboldens and even cements dynasties rather than restricts their participation. And secondly, well, the Senate is a big example of the problem of political dynasties. So paano ba yun? Magkakapatid eh. How would they, although we've heard, I think the Tulfos, they said that, if it passes, then one of them will bow out, something like that, no? But we'll see.
Or run for higher office.
That's also true, which is what the House version is all about. That they can actually just run in different positions, and and
But July T. Hanky sees it differently. When the son of the president mentioned that they're hoping, like in an interview, parang nag-signal siya na they're open in the BICAM to have the Senate version, something to that effect.
I think they should be open, but I think
Kasi yung reality naman talaga, hindi papasa sa House talaga.
Right. But I think also because of the political moment, especially at the time that this was first being pursued in the House, the political pressure was being felt by the political class, by the members of the Congress, because fresh pa yung flood control scandal. And they felt that they had to concede at least this, diba? To stay in power.
Parang lang yun, strategy na bumaba ang public anger.
And now that so surveys would show people are still interested in accountability, but wala, the height of that moment is we're far from that, no? Baka I think I can imagine, this is not coming from the majority leader or any members of Congress, but I could imagine that now they feel safer that they can get away with this version.
I don't know. If you watch the siblings Cayetano in the impeachment trial, you'd think anti-dynasty bill is needed.
Well,
or the Villars.
Yeah, but this is the same chamber who will be deciding about that dynasty reform, right? So that's going to be difficult.
So you're not sold. I mean, you think it will have a tough time.
I think so. Without enough public pressure, but we'll see. There might be another round of political awakening among the public that this has to end. Especially 2028 is coming, and also because a lot of the big names in the flood control scandal, right? The former Congressman Saldico, Secretary Bonoan, still at large. Secretary Bonoan is proposed to be a state witness. Hopefully the public, will realize that they need to put pressure again, and hopefully that convinces the Senate, because there's 2028, they have to be re-elected, that they have to stand for this anti-dynasty reform.
Okay. What else do you feel was very important that was not addressed?
Another thing I would say would be that, I did touch on it, that the legislative ambitions are quite thin in this particular round of the Sona. Traditionally, this is
may mga lilista kang...
It's like a memo. It's an order from Malacanang. Congress, let's work on this, no? So that's quite unusual. But again, that's probably an acknowledgement of the reality. And that, the president just wants to take matters to his own hand kasi hirap na bumuo ng consensus.
Gagawin na ng executive lahat, parang ganon.
He knows that the upper chamber, the Senate, is quite divided because of the impeachment trial. What else could they... I mean, of course, they will try to do their work, but they're very much taken by that particular trial. The House, some of its best members are public prosecutors, diba? Baka it's too much na then for him to expect na, okay, let's do this. But of course, meron pa ding mga orders, the IPIRA amendment, no, the amendment to IPIRA.
Pero pinalakpakan yun ng husto, so papasa yun.
Yes,
It's
and Hopefully so, kasi di ba, we have
Yeah.
one of the highest
Especially
electricity
maraming
rates.
re-electionist rin dyan.
Ang mahal ng kuryente natin. It's not only for ordinary Filipinos, but also small businesses. They've always been saying that one of the problems doing business in the country are high electricity rates.
Right, right. But, well, also a much applauded portion was the ending when he took on China.
Yes, and that's a well-deserved, I think, applause, no? Because as we know, our neighbor hasn't been really neighborly in the past months, and they've been being very aggressive. And if there's something that I unequivocally endorse with the president's policies, I probably think that's his foreign policy, because compared to the previous administration especially, he has really taken an interest in ensuring that not only that the West Philippine Sea is defended domestically, but you know, whenever he is internationally, he talks about our cause.
Right,
no?
and there are those who tell me that internationally, President BBM is well regarded. I guess it's a surprise because, you know, when he took office, it was like we were the laughing stock. How could you elect the son of, you know, someone who had stolen from the coffers of the country? But because of his stance on the West Philippine Sea, he has come to be quite well regarded. Is that correct?
Yes, in many ways, he's a poster boy for the international community, because you know the human rights, the West Philippine Sea, no, at least compared to the previous administration, he's very much welcome. I think my wish lang is that yes, he's been courting allies, and they've been helping
And
us.
they have come.
Patrol our waters, very vocal statements agad yan if there's a Chinese aggression in our waters. But also, I think baka he can ask his friends, his newfound friends in the international community to help us get economic relief, diba? Kasi yun ang problem.
Kasi yun ang kailangan natin din. And especially if his successor will not have the same point of view, will not share that the arbitral ruling must be respected, right?
And this is probably also why the president is also standing for Pax Silica without
Right.
any doubts, no?
Bakit hindi?
Feeling ko geopolitical yung considerations, yeah.
So shouldn't that be part of a treaty or something to give it more permanence?
See, one of the ways in which we can really, you know, credibly improve our national defense is also to improve our economic status. And I think from the perspective of the president and the allies, no, having Pax Silica here, you know, could generate jobs, could be start of industry. But that doesn't mean, of course, na we disregard the concerns of the environmentalists and others, right? But I think I understand where the president is coming from.
All right, so you think it's doable in the next 2 years, given that you gave him 7, if he accomplishes what he set out to do. Ito yung speech ni Presidente, ang kapal. Right? Is that correct? Your last thoughts na before parting shots from you.
Yes. Well, the president that's the promise of the president. The president is promising that he has another act left. But of course, we will be the judge on the anti-corruption. Its conviction will be the basis of our judgment, not the president's address, diba? On the policies, it's the relief that we will feel, not actually the president's address, no? So it remains to be seen. But I think what I will give to him based on this address is that akala ko tapos na ang presidency niya. But I think it will still be interesting the remaining 2 years.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights. That was political scientist Cleve Arguelles. You're watching The Big Story on One News. When we return, we tell you why several senators from the minority bloc opted to skip the president's report to the nation. Stay tuned.
Cagayan is both geographically and economically primed to serve as our gateway to space and host the country's first spaceport. A sounding rocket launch test is slated for next year. Yes, we are going to launch a rocket into space. This we will do in partnership with a South Korean aerospace company.
President Marcos there announcing a space lift-off from up north, the first ever for the Philippines. The rocket launch is set to happen next year in Cagayan, the province seen as the country's gateway to space. Meantime, street actions during today's Sona were a showdown between pro and anti-administration groups. Donned in red, Marcos supporters held a watch party during the president's fifth report to the nation. So far, they said they are satisfied with the current leadership, but like most Filipinos, they also have a wish list.
Yung presyo po kasi mataas po ngayon. Kailangan po ngayon yung mga allowance mababa din. Kaya kailangan po na mababa po yung presyo ng mga produkto po.
Para sa ating mahal na Pangulo, sana po lahat po ng pinangako mo po ay matupad po. Lahat ng kurakot sana po ay mapakulong, mapanagot ang lahat ng dapat managot. At sana po ipagpatuloy niyo lang po ang maganda po ninyong ginagawa.
Along Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City, where the anti-Sona protesters were, tensions flared and led to a standoff. Policemen initially arrested a few demonstrators. Their companions resisted and blocked the BJMP bus where those apprehended were loaded onto. The bus nearly hit the rallyists. In total, the PNP arrested 51 protesters over various violations. Progressive group Bayan has condemned the police action.
General, ito ba ang tinatawag yung maximum tolerance? Kasi sa tingin namin, ito ay maximum panunupil, maximum na perwisyo sa taong bayan. Bakit kailangan kaming sagasaan? Bakit kailangan pagbantaan kami? Naaarestuhin din kami?
Nagbabandalism sila doon eh. Biruin mo, lalaki nung binandalize nila doon. And yung nagtatakip ng muka. Bawal naman magtatakip ng muka. Lalo na yung nangyari nung September last year. Kita nyo naman, di ba? And ayaw natin payagan na sila pa ay magpatuloy na manggulo dyan sa kalsada. At maapektuhan, of course, yung tahimik na nagpoprotesta.
Several members of the Senate minority bloc decided to skip President Bongbong Marcos's fifth State of the Nation address in their way to protest the detention and prosecution, or it was their way to protest the detention and prosecution of their allies. Senate Minority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano was joined by Senators Loren Legarda, Pia Cayetano, and Robin Hood Padilla. Even the President's sister, Senator Amy Marcos, sat out the annual event.
Masama ang loob namin dahil pinagkukulong, kinakasuhan ang minority. Yun lang, parang di ko kaya eh.
You're also
masama ang loob ko dyan eh. Well, I think marami sa amin di pupunta. Pero last year, di na rin ako pumunta talaga.
Hindi naman. Kasi mas mau-offend ko ang kaibigan ko na Pangulo ng Pilipinas. Kung pumapalakpak lahat, tapos ako'y hindi. Mas mau-offend siya. Pagtatayo ang lahat, magbibigay ng standing ovation, sabay ako hindi. Ayaw kong gawin sa kanya yun. Kaibigan ko yun.
This is the second straight year that Amy Marcos skipped her brother Sona after also missing it in 2025. Senators Jinggoy Estrada and Rodante Marcoleta were also absent as they remained detained over separate plunder cases. Senator Bato de la Rosa, on the other hand, is still in hiding over an ICC warrant for his arrest. The former Senate President has expressed concern over the state of democracy in the country.
It's my simple way of protesting pati sa pagblablak. But I really believe that our democracy is in danger and talagang pag nagsalita ka, target ka bigla.
Vice President Sara Duterte was also a no-show at President Marcos's Sona today, despite being invited to attend. The VP is currently on an official trip to Qatar, the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands from July 16 to 31. This is Duterte's third consecutive absence from the president's annual address. The last time VP Sara attended the Sona was in 2023 when she and the chief executive were still political allies. Her absence also comes as she faces an impeachment trial before the Senate. Former House Speaker Martin Romualdez was also absent, skipping the opening of the second regular session of Congress as well. But as you know, he was mentioned in his cousin, the president's speech. Marcos said the ombudsman is expected to file multiple cases against Romualdez in connection with the flood control scandal. The lawmaker's response? PBBM's remark was painful for his family, but he respects it. Romualdez also said he agrees that the right thing to do is to follow the legal process and let the evidence speak for itself. He maintained that he has done nothing wrong. This is a big story in One News, and coming up, PAC Silica figures in the State of the Nation address amid growing uproar over the environmental impact of the AI hub. We have details next.
At kung pagbawas ng presyo ang usapan, sa aking palagay, panahon na para tanggalin na natin ang systems loss na pinapasa sa consumer. We, the people, we demand for the immediate amendment of the EPIRA. And to prohibit charging systems lost against consumers, including the value-added tax thereon.
Malapit na ang paghain ng patong-patong na kaso laban sa dating speaker. Masakit man sa akin ito, ngunit kailangan nating gawin ang tama. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking pamilya. Hindi ako pangulo ng aking kaibigan. Ako ay Pangulo ng Pilipinas at ang tungkulin ko ay sa inyo, ang aking mga kapwa Pilipino.
Two separate improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, were discovered early Monday near the Senate and the Department of Justice. That's just hours before President Bongbong Marcos's fifth State of the Nation address. One device was recovered near the Senate along Jokno Boulevard in Pasay, where police safely rendered it inoperable. The NCRPO said a towing company employee alerted police to a suspicious biscuit tin on the center island. Inside, authorities found a 9-volt battery, a blasting cap, a clock, and a plastic jar containing a brown powdery substance suspected to be explosive material. Hours earlier, an IED exploded near the entrance of the Department of Justice along Padre Faura Street in Ermita, Manila. Investigations are underway into the incidents, which both had no reported casualties.
Units, agencies, para matukoy natin at ano ang dahilan, possibility or probability sa pagkaugay.
Aside from accomplishments, President Bongbong Marcos also laid down important policy directives during this year's Sona. Among these is the PAC Silica initiative. And telling us about it is mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Arles.
Sinalakay nga din ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa kanyang ikalimang Sona ang mga planong pang-ekonomiya para sa Pilipinas, gaya ng ngayon kontrobersyal na PAC Silica Industrial Hub na isang flagship project ng Amerika na kung saan nga sa artificial intelligence o AI at supply chain security nakapokus na itatayo dito sa Pilipinas. Pakinggan natin ang bahagi ng panayam ni talumpati ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos.
Additionally, a product of the 23-member-strong U.S.-led PAC Silica initiative, the PAC Silica Industrial Hub will create an ecosystem that will have AI at its core. It will bring quality jobs to our people, accelerate our industrial competitiveness, and revitalize our economy.
Pero hindi binanggit ng Pangulo ang tiyak na hakbang para masiguradong mapangalagaan ang kapaligiran sa lugar. Pangamba kasi ng ilang grupo at eksperto ang posibleng epekto nito sa supply ng tubig at kuryente, maging sa pagmimina nito sa oras na magbukas ito. Samantala, ipinagmalaki rin ni PBBM ang 23 free trade agreements ng Pilipinas sa iba't ibang bahagi at sa iba't ibang mga bansa at hindi rin daw natin kailangang lumayo dahil tuloy-tuloy ang ating pakikipagtulungan sa ating mga kapatid sa ASEAN mula sa supply ng pagkain, petrolyo at digital rules maging ang pagsulong ng diplomasya at pagpapalakas sa ating regional cooperation. Pakinggan natin muli si PBBM.
During our chairship of the ASEAN Summit this year, we advocated for greater solidarity and cooperation among ASEAN member states. Together, we found ways to alleviate the dire consequences of the war in the Middle East. Through a united ASEAN and its strong extended network, we have achieved greater security and resilience as a region and as individual nations, more capable of withstanding disruptive events.
Binanggit din ng Pangulo Ces ang mga programang pangkalusugan para sa mga Pilipino gaya ng Yakap Program, Gamot Program, pag-aalis ng value-added tax sa higit 2,000 mga gamot. Ginawa ring mas inklusibo ang PhilHealth para labanan ang mga malulubhang karamdaman tulad ng kanser, sakit sa puso, kasama na rin sa pagpapagamot ang HIV o AIDS. Sa sektor naman ng transportasyon, ibinida ni PBBM ang pagpapabuti ng mga tren, busways, transport hubs at integrated terminals iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa, pati ang pagpapalawak ng mga paliparan at pantalan.
Sa susunod na taon, bubuksan na rin ang 12 stasyon ng MRT-7. Matapos ang halos 3 dekada, may bago ng linya ang MRT na tutulak pa hanggang Sacred Heart sa Quezon City mula sa North Avenue. At balang araw, aabot pa ito hanggang San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Sadyang napakalaking ginhawa nito sa halos 1,000,000 na pasahero bawat araw.
Kasama rin sa mga pinaghandaan ng pamahalaan ay ang pagbubuo nga ng mga disaster preparedness sa gitna ng krisis ng kalamidad na handa umanong pagpapadala ng mga mobile emergency systems upang makapaghatid ng emergency power sa mga lugar na nawawalan ng kuryente. Kabukod nga sa ating mga nabanggit, ay tinanong din natin syempre ang reaksyon ng ilan sa mga miyembro ng gabinete, maging ng mga mambabatas, dito nga sa naging ikalimang State of the Nation Address ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Halo-halo ang kanilang mga naging reaksyon. Mayroong mga nakulangan, mayroon naman ikinatuwa ang pagbanggit ng Pangulo, kagaya na lamang ng nabanggit kanina na issue sa West Philippine Sea, pagtalakay sa karapatan ng mga kababaihan at syempre yung ilan ay natutuwa talaga doon sa mga programa ng pamahalaan para sa mas inklusibo at mas mahusay na pagpapatupad ng Universal Healthcare Act.
Thank you for your report, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. They're reporting to us live from Batasang, Pambansa. And before we go, here's a look at how Malacanang's call for a simple but dignified Sona was reflected in this year's fashion. For the second straight year, guests skipped the traditional red carpet and opted for simpler attire. Modern Filipiniana in white and neutral tones took center stage, while men mostly wore the barong Tagalog. First Lady Lisa Araneta Marcos wore an exclusive Michael Leyva Filipiniana. Tutsi Angara chose Rahul Laurel's modern take on the Balintawak, while Senator Risa Ontiveros wore an ivory silk terno by Joe Rubio. Yusek Margarita Gutierrez wore an archival Mark Baumgardner design. Jocelyn Tulfo toned down her look this year in a tasseled mustard yellow Michael Leyva Filipiniana with emerald earrings. Kabataan Party List Representative Rene Co, meanwhile, incorporated artwork symbolizing the youth's call against corruption. Meanwhile, Senators Alan Peter Cayetano, Pia Cayetano, and Amy Marcos wore black as a form of protest, though they did not attend the President's 5th State of the Nation address. And those are the big stories this Monday, July 27. I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon. Kapatid, we are One News, your side all the time. Good night.